David Martins from the Vermont Affordable Housing Coalition. Thank you so much for joining me today to talk a bit about the Vermont Affordable Housing Coalition, or VAHC. I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about what that organization is.
Sure, and thanks for having me on today. The Vermont Affordable Housing Coalition, or the VAHC, is a partnership of a number of organizations from across the state who are really united in working together towards increasing accessibility to safe, decent, affordable, perpetually affordable housing for all Vermonters. And we have a number of different types of organizations. Primarily, historically, those organizations have been related to housing, whether they're nonprofit housing developers or advocacy groups. A couple of groups that are that do advocacy work, not directly in housing, but related to housing. And we're trying right now to really look at expanding that membership, so that really we can say that the types of organizations that are a part of VAHC are anyone, anyone who's committed to the mission. And I would say that that work largely unfolds through advocacy, through outreach, and through education.
So can you give some examples of some of the each of those components? You talked about advocacy, outreach, and education. Are there projects or initiatives that fall under each of those that could give us more information?
Sure. And every time I talk about this, I'm reminded I was a philosophy major in college, and I think of Thomas Aquinas, who said that the answers in life are rarely either or. They're almost always both and. And I think that that kind of axiom really applies to our mission statement, because advocacy, education, and outreach really and truly, I think, all go together. When you talk about advocacy, I think we're talking about legislative advocacy. So our activity at the State House, lobbying and, talking to legislators, but that's 4 months out of the year or 5 months out of the year. The other component, I think, of advocacy is that idea of community advocacy. So, and I think that that's where a lot of that outreach and education is so integral. So, we want to make sure that all Vermonters know that the issue of access to affordable housing is everyone's problem. And so, and helping to educate around why, and how do the solutions work? Because the solutions can be kind of complicated if you're not kind of in the housing network or in this bubble, right? So to kind of explain, and certainly because I know you're very good at doing it, explaining to a layman, if you will, kind of how it all works. And outreach around really getting folks of every walk of life to be plugged in, to have their voice heard, and for us to be able to I think that housing is one of those issues that can be really uniting because it applies to everyone, and everyone agrees that it applies to everyone. So really kind of lucky to have to be working on this issue that that really misses no one. I mean, really includes everyone. So some of our big activities include working with the Vermont Coalition to End Homelessness on their Homelessness Awareness Day, this Fair Housing Day at the State House. We're looking at really putting together some more community advocacy kind of events, like in parks and that kind of thing, to really outreach to the community in new ways that we haven't done before. We're also really trying to intentionally partner with community organizations from outside the housing world to talk about how housing impacts that particular community. So for example, if it's September, which, Substance Abuse Recovery Month, maybe try to partner with recovery community organizations, with the recovery centers, and to bring that topic to light, and also for us to be able to be sort of a liaison for that community with regard to their housing needs, if that makes sense. June is LGBTQ plus, Pride Month. Some months were kind of that don't have a obvious kind of designated theme. We're making up our own. So we really want to be consistently building and intentionally building to really expand our web beyond just the housing world.
Yeah, and that's the power of a coalition. I mean, I think from my vantage point, that's where the success of the coalition has been, which is bringing people together who may have organizationally or individually their own priorities when it comes to housing, whether that be rental or homeownership or homelessness or something else, and bringing those voices together to see that we actually need all of us to accomplish the grand goal, because housing is a ladder, or whatever metaphor you want to use, that we need to make sure that we are providing adequate housing for all people at every point in their life, depending on what their circumstances are. So I think there's a lot of power in that. And I love hearing what you're talking about with even broadening the coalition even farther. That's not always easy. Sometimes, with a diverse coalition, you probably get some differing viewpoints, but it's always great when there can be that respectful convening table that we either physically or metaphorically gather around to have those discussions to find out what's best for Vermont. I'm curious about the details of how is the coalition supported? What's the money engine behind it, and how's that work?
Well, if you'd like to send us a check, I can give you the address.
We'll plug it right at the bottom of the screen.
Well, we certainly do accept, we're certainly not going to turn down any donations, but our primary source of funding really is through membership dues that folks who are part of the coalition, the organizations, pay dues that help contribute to our being able to continue the work that we do. We've put together sort of a subcommittee on fundraising and to talk about ways that we can do some fundraising to generate some more funds, but primarily it is through through membership dues. And there's been different grants along the way to pay for certain projects and certain programs. Where part of our sort of community growth work is around we used to call it resident organizing. Now I'm trying to call it community organizing, to really bring together folks, especially like folks with low to moderate income folks, to really have those voices represented at the table in whatever way possible. And some of that work started through some grant funding prior to my arrival here. And we're really continuing to build on that work. We've also our Voices of Home project, which is sort of born out of that work, which really involved getting folks who are currently living in various affordable housing settings to share their story, so that their story can be heard, so that to inspire the people who need to be inspired, and to help with that work of educating. And we had an AmeriCorps Vista with us for a while, who was a very talented artist, and that sort of brought, by incorporating art into this storytelling work, some great projects were born from it. And then Voice of Home just kind of took off from there. And so that's something that's been typically funded through grants. And so certainly, like every other nonprofit, there's a little bit of kind of piecing together the funding, but the big chunk is the support of our members.
Well, the coalition has been around for many decades, and many of us have seen its good work. We're excited by your new leadership and vision, bringing the coalition forward, and I look forward to working with you going forward.
Likewise, and thanks again for having me.
Thank you.